Hello and thanks for watching. This is the W podcast featuring Wolvy and SaucyJay. I'm SaucyJay. The W podcast, everything Warcraft. Wolvy, you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, sure. So I think the unique thing about this podcast is going to be first that we're both healers, so our perspective and our mindset is kind of go lean towards that part. And then the other thing is we're just regular players. So I know that there's a lot of podcasts out there, and they all include some very good players who are either participating in the race to world first or you're pushing very high keys. We're just regular players. So I think our perspective and the points that we're going to present are going to be a little bit more down to earth, and they're going to touch base with the regular player a little bit better than what we see in the other podcasts. So hopefully you guys enjoy it. And we can start with today's topics, which is going to cover everything that happened in the past week. And we had a lot with the Warcraft Direct and all the announcements, the interviews that happened, and the exciting topics that we're going to be talking about. First up, Jay, you can introduce yourself a little bit as well.
Yeah. So SaucyJ been playing WoW since vanilla. Uh, love the game. Played multiple aspects, multiple characters, as Wolvie mentioned. Primarily a healer perspective for the most part, but I do other things like DPS and tank. I do most forms of the game, so that includes PvP, Mythic Plus, Mythic rating. Right now, I'm kind of in a funny place where, I'm doing a little bit of everything on multiple characters, but longtime player of the game, love different elements of it, and yeah, excited to express my thoughts and feelings on the podcast.
All right. Well, I'm kind of the same, apart from the PvP. So you have some really nice insights there. But I guess with today's topics, we can start with whatever's on the screen already, which is one of the biggest announcements that had a lot of hype in the community. And that was the announcement of the player housing. We had a short trailer which showed you walking into your house, and there were some stuff hanging on the wall. And I think a lot of players were expecting that. So, what are your initial thoughts on that?
I'll be honest, I'm excited. I think player housing something that's been partially tried in the game. You think obviously garrisons is a big, first thought. But them specifically calling it player housing and having some of the decorative features and customizations, I think is a big deal. So my initial thoughts, I'm excited to see what they produce.
Okay, and you mentioned garrisons already. I didn't play back in that expansion, but there was a scare that it might be the case where you have all the utilities in your house. You have the auction house, you have the guild bank, whatever you need. So you just lock yourself in there and you never get out, which is going to make all the capital cities basically not needed in the game. And then there was an interview, I think, with Ian who said, yeah, we realized that actually the capital cities are a social place where people can interact with each other, and we don't want the houses to be the garrisons. So, what are your thoughts on that? And what do you expect from the house? Do you think there's going to be like auction house and stuff, or you can just make a custom dungeon in the basement?
Yeah, so the garrisons I think were a really cool feature. It wasn't super customizable. You had like large and small plots that you can put different things, and so there were some professional elements to it. I don't. It's been a while, so I don't remember all the little details, but I do remember doing a lot of fishing in the garrison, which was cool because it was just right behind you. There was some herbing you can do back there as well. There's like a little plot for like herbs and stuff. I played Resto Druid back then, so most of that stuff's coming from the Resto Druid perspective, which was an alchemist and herbalist. So it was fun though. It was nice to have a Hearthstone to get you right there. You had a little tower that you had a portal that could take you to the main city, and so you could pop in and pop out when you needed to. Mostly doing missions for player power type things out of there. So it was cool. I don't have concerns with the aspect of killing cities because garrisons didn't do that. So I doubt player housing will. I do think, I'm personally, I use Instacart, I use Uber Eats. So I can expect there to be some elements of auction house inside of your house. where you get stuff delivered right to your house. I think that's cool. I don't think it'll kill the population though. So hopefully they include elements like that. What are your thoughts?
Okay. Oh, I'm kind of the same because I did go back into the garrisons like post factum after I came back to the game, so I kind of know what it is. There were some fun aspects there, but I guess one thing that kind of bothers me, related to the player housing, is that the garrison was a template, right? I guess, there was a horde version and a lance version. That's it. You could like move buildings around, but it was not highly customizable. Let's put it this way. And one thing that kind of scared me in the interviews, I think that was the Holly Longsdale interview. She said, "Okay, we know that we showed you in the teaser a Stormwind-based team, but there are more teams, so don't worry." And that is a little bit worrying to me because I don't want teams. I want,
Yeah.
and that's a long shot reference, but I don't know if you played The Sims. There's like a game where you can like build a house and you can buy furniture
Long
and
time
things like
ago.
that. Yeah. Oh, my wife plays it more, but the point is, you can do whatever you want there. Like you can shape your house in whatever way you want. You can put whatever you want inside. So it's very and highly customizable. Obviously, wanting to have something in that much detail in WoW is probably too much to ask. But I also hope that it's not just down to like a template and you can just move the things on the wall. That's gonna be a little bit of disappointment, I think.
Yeah, I've played a few games that have player housing. A couple that come to mind: Star Wars: The Old Republic, and I think that they did okay. Um, WildStar had very interesting player housing, and there was I won't say an abundance, but there was a pretty heavy amount of not customization, but you had houses that you can go through and select and pick. And that was cool. And they were very faction driven. And so there were certain ones that were locked off from whichever faction you were at that time, which, I agree with you. I think that Blizzard is not going to allow complete customization of the housing. They're going to want thematical housing. Um, I think that makes sense because they want to keep it in the lore of the game. Um, However, I can see there being a lot of options. You think of pets or even transmog and the variety. Now, obviously, transmog's got years and years and years to work from, but I can see there being elements of that customization, maybe from a sizing standpoint. But I think there's going to be some right out of the box, for money houses that you can buy with real money, and then things that you can maybe earn through certain achievements, and maybe some slight customization there. But I definitely think that there's going to be some limits. My anticipation is some limits to what the exterior looks like, and then interior maybe a little bit more customizational.
Yeah. And I'm pretty sure there's gonna be a lot of angry people when there's money sinks from like the store. But I don't know. I think that's guaranteed. It's gonna be part of the game, but um, uh, it's going to affect us somehow. So how do you feel about going back into the old raids to farm like a recipe for a furniture or something? How does that sound to
Yeah,
you?
I think that's cool. I mean, I love the amount of content that the game made, and to just let it sit there and die is
Yeah.
unfortunate. And I like that they're reintroducing some of the dungeons. We're going back to some of the older places in the game. I think more of that needs to happen. I think that's a good thing, and I hope that they introduce that as part of the system.
Okay. Well, last on this topic, I guess we're not getting. I haven't played Final Fantasy 14, but I know that the houses there like a premium, and only few people can get them. I don't think that's gonna be the case in WoW, right? Everybody's gonna have one for sure. But where do you think the houses are going to be? Do you think it's going to be like the open world, and you can pick? Oh, I want to go into like Mogor and make my house there, or because in my mind, I just imagine this small island to the side and all the houses are there, kind of like a different chart. And if you want to go there and walk the main street, see all the houses, that's it. But you cannot just go somewhere and see somebody's house out into the open world.
No, you would hope that my hopes would be in a fantasy world that it would be where you can kind of stroll along and see somebody's house. Now, the fact is there's just way too many people and not enough land and resources in the game to support that unless they were instance based.
Some real
And I'm
world
sure that
problems,
that,
you know?
that kind of, yeah, exactly. Yeah. So So, yeah, I think, like the garrison was in the real world, and when you went to it, it phased for you, which is cool, but you don't have neighbors, you didn't have neighborhoods. You think about guilds and how does that play into player housing? Like, will there be like a guild house, which would be kind of cool. Um, I think of back to when we had the class-based like areas. You remember was that Legion where you had your legendary weapon where the priests had their own area, the Reds had their own, the Paladins had their own area, the Death Knights. Um, will it be, I think a lot of it's going to be instance based. Unfortunately, I just think there's too much difficulty in developing an area. Maybe an island will be cool where it's like, and you can go, maybe there's a neighborhood based on a server, or maybe there's a neighborhood based on, communities you're in or guilds you're in. I don't know. That's something interesting. I like the idea of being able to roll up and see multiple different houses. And when you think about, excuse me, when you think about professions, and just getting back to like the town of like Stormwind or Orgrimmar and having the hustle and bustle of those towns. It'd be cool maybe if they integrated them there where, you walked up to an island, one of the rows had been converted to apartments or houses or something. I don't know. I didn't play Final Fantasy either, but I understand that there was houses and there was apartments and there was free housing, and seems pretty robust. And I could see there being like social tiers among that. Like, oh, you have a house, you must have money, and oh, you have free housing, you must be broke. Interesting to think about. I have no idea where they're going to take it, but I think they have options. And knowing Blizzard, I think they'll make some good. They'll make it, at least hopefully take a good stab at it.
Yeah,
What do you
hopefully,
think?
because apparently we lost a whole tier for that, which was in my mind season 4. I was very loud about how bad season 4 was. I didn't even call it a season. And I guess this is an excuse, but if that's the excuse and they nailed the houses, maybe we can forgive them for season 4. That's my opinion. But
Yeah,
yeah. Uh,
limited budgets, I guess. I guess they don't have enough money to have a team that can dedicate to this, and struggling on the money. Small indie company, as people always
Yeah,
reference.
yeah,
You know.
exactly. All right, so I guess we're gonna get more information at the start of next year. I think this is what they said in the interviews, so we'll have much more to talk about. But I guess we can skip to some of the other topics. So something closer in the horizon is the new patch, which is going to be released in December 17th. Siren Isle, I guess you get a new ring, which I don't know how you feel about it. It has a huge reference to, I think it was the Forbidden Reach. That was the other patch that we got with the new zone and the ring. Um, I guess something to be excited for, but for a player like me who is mainly focused on Mythic Plus and Raid, that's basically nothing new to me. Like I'll have to farm a ring. I'll have to farm some gems for it. It's going to maybe change my gameplay, maybe not. But at the end of the day, it's going to be something that I do for a couple of days and then I'm just waiting for the next patch. Do you feel the same?
Yeah, I think it's just a recycle of a system that's already been used very recently, unfortunately. And the only, it's not exciting to me, I'll be honest. I think it is filler. I think it's content, and that's good. And it's always exciting to get new content, explore the new zone. And it is fun to get gear and gear it up and level it. I think I have my thoughts around that and how, they didn't say a lot about how that's going to work, but I definitely have some questions, and I'm hoping that in the next few weeks they announce kind of how it's going to work.
Yeah, I just hope it's old friendly because I enjoyed doing this content once it comes out. As I said, it's gonna be a few days until you finish it, but I just don't want to do it again. If I have to do the same thing on all the olds, like farm all the gems, and then there was a currency that you needed to upgrade the rings and the gems, so you could get the correct gems, but then you had to go and farm this so you can upgrade them, and that was a big hassle. So I just hope you get it on your main, then you can like even warband trade it or something, so everybody can have it, and you can just move on with your gameplay.
I hope so. I do PvP, and when I do solo shuffle as a healer, when I win, which is often, fortunately, you get a chest that's special because you're a healer, and there's not a ton of healers in PvP apparently. So we get extra bonuses whenever we do Soul Shuffle because basically the queue is dependent on healers. Um, in that chest, you have a currency that is used that you can is warbound, so I can send it to any of my other characters, and it gives them conquest, which is super nice when I start a new alt and I want to jump right into PvP. I can just dump a bunch of conquest in. Now, obviously, you're still limited to the weekly caps or the seasonal caps, but it's still nice to not have to farm that out on that character because it could be a grind. And so I hope they do something like that for the ring because I don't think the ring is obviously not going to be shareable. The power around the ring, how's that going to work? So I'm hoping that they do include some warbound elements to the ring because, one of the reasons I love this expansion so much and why I haven't pushed deep into Mythic Plus, deep into PvP, deep into Mythic rating is because I'm on every single alt. I mean, I may be on a Warlock for a week, then I'm going to Displays, then I'm going to Resto Shaman, then I'm doing BM Hunter, and then I'm doing Blood DK, right? I'm doing all the alts and just having fun playing them. Not at a really high level, but really enjoying it. And so I want to be able to have that same experience for now and not feel punished because I have to grind out a ring on each one.
Oh, I think last time that happened, they didn't have the warband, so that is going to be a huge bonus, and I think they're going to integrate it for sure because the ring. Pretty sure that's going to be very dependent on your gameplay style. Like it's going to be powerful. Everybody's gonna want it one way or another. So they just need to make it easy for people who just don't want to go and do outdoor content just to get it and just go play whatever they want.
Yeah, my fear with that, and I'll be honest, and you've probably experienced this or are familiar with it. Um, some of the communities can be toxic in the sense of item level and player power. And unfortunately, if your ring is not at a certain level, that means you're
Yeah.
casual. You may not get the invite to XYZ. And so that's a concern with alts. So, thank goodness that there's Raider IO for Mythic Plus. So now when I get on alts, I'm a healer alt that has 0 CR, I can still get into, if my item level is around 600, 610, I'll easily get invites to 5s and 6s and 7s because the players that are doing it can see that my main's 2,500 or whatever. And we're like, okay, bring this guy because he's got the item level. He knows what he's doing, right? How is I going to play with a ring? I don't know,
Yeah.
but I know that usually people will take a look at the ring as an element of like, is this person doing what they need to
Not
do to be
everyone is
invited?
expecting your gear because you can see the item level, you can see the IO because there's like add-ons for that, but I don't
Yeah.
think the ring is going to be to an add-on. So
Okay, good.
I
Yeah.
can see your perspective, and that's a whole different topic. We can talk about
Yeah.
ults and
Yeah,
gearing
for
later
sure.
on, but yeah, let's just hope they nail this, and then you won't even be able to fly at all times to this island. So I'm not sure how enjoyable it's going to be. Again, there's gonna be mounts, there's gonna be achievements, so I'm gonna go do them, but that's not something that I'm really looking forward to. But we'll see how it turns out. The same announcement, and you said solo shuffle, so let's talk a little bit about PvP. It has a Plunderstorm announcement. So first, I guess the first question is, how was Plunderstorm back for you when it was active the first time?
I played for like a day. It wasn't my thing. I
Oh,
think even as much PvP as I enjoy, it didn't click for me. It didn't click for me. I don't remember if I think I was more focused on higher keys at that point. And I again, because I love PvP, I jumped into it. I just didn't enjoy it. It felt not complete to me. It didn't feel like a completed game, and I had a hard time with it.
all
Not
right.
in the sense of like how to game it, but just it didn't feel comfortable to me.
I did not expect that answer. I'll tell you that much. All right. So for me, I will say that I did not enjoy it, but the main reason was because I collect mounts. Like I do all the stuff that I do in trying to push keys and raid, but when I have some downtime, I farm mounts. So they had mounts and transmogs connected to the renown there. So basically, I made a small calculation and I knew that I have to play like 200 games to get the mount. And I did enjoy because I think it was really well designed. There was some really cool ideas. I've never played a battle royale kind of game before, so that was something new to me. And up to like, because I think there was like 40 levels, right? Up to level 10, it was fun because it was new, it was fresh, it was different. I was learning, so I had a blast up until level 10. But then it started to feel like a grind, right? Because same thing, like it didn't really click with me because I guess battle royale is not something that kind of vibes with the way that I want to play games. So there were like 30 levels now that I had to go through and play because there was a mount at the end, and that was not that enjoyable. I guess that's a little bit of uh, a look at the game because, as I said, it was well designed, and so saying that it shouldn't be there because I had to grind it and farm a mount, it's maybe a little bit of selfish thing to say. But I think that they could have also handled it a little bit better from that perspective. I think they're trying to do so because they said that there's going to be a different way to play it this time around. So I think the rewards are going to be currency based. Maybe you still have to grind the currency, right? It's still going to be the same thing. But they also said that you'll be able to play, as far as I understood from some of the interviews, you'll be able to play with your own character, right? So it's not going to be, I create this Plunderstorm
Yeah,
thing and then
that's
just
good.
play with it. So that is probably going to make it a little bit more personal and feel that
Yeah,
it's even more involved into the game.
yeah.
Because
That's
one of the main reasons that I played it was that there was something. It was not WoW. It was a separate game, but then there were things from that game that you could use into the real
yeah,
game. It was connected, so that connection
yeah,
was important. And I think they're trying to make this even stronger, which is only going to play better, I guess, into the whole Plunderstorm idea.
yeah. I hope they do that. I dream of a day where I remember I was talking to two of my buddies about before Plunderstorm was announced or came out. I wish WoW had a battle royale where I could solo, duo, or trio with my character, and just like a Fortnite or any of the other royales where you could go in with your character and compete. And I think that's a phenomenal idea. I think back to the island, power player power. I think it was BFA where we had the island
Mhm.
missions, and they had like AI bots in there where you could PvP against other people. That was so fun. I enjoyed that. And some people didn't because again, it was a lot of grind in WoW sometimes. But when I get to play my own character that I know very well, and I have my abilities and I can team up with people, I'm competitive and I love that. So if they do that, I'm all in at that point. I will be heavily invested in Blunderstorm.
Yeah, I think there's a lot to be expected in that direction. And I will say that although like I eventually I didn't enjoy playing it that much, I actually had fun playing because they had those tournaments where all the big PvP players went and they had like teams, etc. That was actually a lot of fun to watch. Like I watch PvP, I don't play it that much, but I enjoy watching it. And I think the organization, the idea behind all those POC players into that tournament, into the arena, that was actually very enjoyable. And I guess they're going to do the same thing this time around as well. So
Exciting.
hopefully they're going to manage it even better. And at the end of the day, you like it or not, I think it's a good addition to the game. So it's something nice to have on the side.
Yeah, love it.
All right. Let's move to something that's I guess a little bit closer to our hearts. Season 2 is going to start with 11.1, and we had some announcements for first the dungeon rotation, and we're obviously getting the 4 dungeons that were part of the original set in the War Within. That are not part of the current season, and then we are getting a brand new dungeon, Operation Floodgate, which when I've read it, the first reaction was, "Oh, we're getting a mega dungeon at in the first patch of first big patch of the expansion," but it turns out it's a regular dungeon. So, what are your thoughts on that initially?
Yeah. I watched a few videos on reactions, and I personally liked the mega dungeon, and so on the fact that like mega dungeons obviously couldn't be in Mythic Plus because it's too big, and then they usually split them into two, and they did that in BFA, and then they did that in was it Dragonflight? They did it. I don't remember if they did it in Shadowlands. I can't recall, but um, But I like the idea of the mega dungeon. I know they did I can't remember the name of them. I know they did like Karazhan. I think they did the
The
I
Dawn
can't
of the Infinites, and then there
yeah,
was
Donna.
something
And what was the
else.
one in BFA? It was the Mecha
Uh,
gun. Well,
the
Mother
the
Load, right?
streets of what was the name? I forgot the name as well, but it was
Oh
this
yes.
broker
Yeah.
kind of thing,
Yeah.
which was that was
Yeah.
fun. Yeah, that was a good one.
Yeah, I like the mega dungeons. I think they're interesting. And then splitting it into two is kind of cool. But I will say it's nice to change it up and just get a single dungeon that you could throw right into the mix. That's going to be new for everybody. I think that's super awesome. I'm excited for it.
Okay. I have actually a different take on this. I don't like the mega dungeons. Like the idea behind them is fine, and especially Dawn of the Infinites, Murazon's Rise, in my opinion, is probably the worst thing they've ever designed in Mythic Plus. But if you think about it from a mega dungeon perspective, it's actually really good because it's like a small raid. There's a story. You go in there, you go through the stuff, all the cool design. You're flying around on dragons and stuff like that. From that perspective, it's amazing. Like whoever did this artwork and design did a very good job. But I don't think they consider that this is going to be an M plus dungeon, which you're going to be doing 50 or 100 times throughout the season. So now you have to wait for the dragons to fly, all
Yep.
the
Yep.
RP,
Yep.
and all the stuff that's inside, right? And I think when they're doing a mega dungeon, whoever's doing the work there is more thinking of, okay, this is a mega dungeon, so I have to give you this experience of a story going on, and we're chasing somebody through the streets of Tazavesh was the name, yeah. So and
Yeah.
that's fine for a story, but it's not fine for Mythic Plus. So and usually the mega dungeons get into the game. They're introduced in, let's say, this season, but they're not in Mythic Plus, and then next season they split them into two and they become part of the Mythic Plus. And with this dungeon, although we don't know much about it yet, you're getting it straight into Mythic Plus, right? They're releasing
Yep.
the dungeon and it's part of the Mythic Plus pool. So I have a very strong hope that they're going to design it so it's actually a Mythic Plus dungeon, right? Obviously, it's going to have a story. Maybe that's good. It might have some RP, but I hope they design it so once you go into there and you're thinking, all right, this is a Mythic Plus dungeon, and I don't have to wait for 5 minutes of RP or fly around in dragons. So
Yeah.
I think that's something to be excited about. Hopefully they nail it down as well. But that's my take on this.
Yeah. Yeah. I completely agree. You hope that they learn from the mistakes of that and can kind of incorporate both elements where, hey, when you're going through it the first time, there's story, there's cutscenes, but once it converts to a Mythic Plus, it's a totally different experience. You're getting right to the action. You're skipping all the cutscenes automatically. They're just pulled out of there. And yeah, hopefully they learn from those lessons in the past. I mean, the community was very vocal, including you yourself, and I think you even timed like how much time it took for each one and how much that meant over the course of XYZ number of runs. And so I think that they listened to that, and hopefully we did see that they made some adjustments for that. So the fact that they have been listening to the community and trying to incorporate some of that feedback is a good thing, and I'm hoping they went intentionally into the design here.
All right, so I guess we can jump to the next part of the season announcements. And first, we only got one dungeon announced from the old ones, and that was the Motherlode from Battle of Azeroth. Personally, I was kind of excited for this, and I was even thinking, all right, they're bringing up Necrotic Wake this season. Why didn't they bring something that was a little bit more fun, which in my mind was Motherlode? And I don't remember that vividly the dungeon, but I remember you could do some crazy pulls into the beginning. Then there was the last boss, which was very engaging. I think it was only 3 boss dungeon, right? There was the machine guy where you could collect the coins, the last
Yeah,
boss with the turrets, and then the middle
it was
boss.
the spitter, the one with the ooze
Yeah,
spitter.
yeah. And
Yeah,
then I think there was just one point in that dungeon that was worrying me, and that was the middle boss, which had something to do with the dispels. I don't remember if it was something that only half of the healers could dispel, but I always get edgy when something like that happens, when you have a mandatory dispel, but not everybody can do it because you are
yeah.
presented with a problem, and
Yep,
sometimes you can solve it, sometimes you
yep.
cannot. Um,
That's right.
and we have some of those even this season with with some of the dispels in the dungeon, or the double dispel in Siege of Borealis, because it's much easier if you have a warlock and they can do the second dispel for you. It's a free boss,
Yep.
but if it's not, you're just struggling, right? So
Yep.
that's my only concern with the mana load, but otherwise I'm kind of exciting, and it was an interesting dungeon back then.
Yeah, I'm excited for it. I know there's a lot of characters or a lot of enemies in that dungeon, and so I know percent is one of the things that was always interesting to play around in that dungeon. When you think about like massive pools and things like that, and some of the areas like when I think back to the after that boss with the dispel, you had to take that little train. And that area, when you go down into that, had a lot of like a lot of mobs, and there was multiple paths you could take through there. So I like that there's some customization that players get to choose the direct route. Now we know there's a meta, and so players that study are going to study, and they're going to have their, they're going to have their pools pre-designed and know exactly what they're going to be pulling. I still think it's cool to have a little variation in a dungeon. So yeah, looking forward to Motherload. I always enjoyed that dungeon for sure.
Yeah, that's a good point. Not having like a linear dungeon and having some
Yeah.
freedom of what to pull and what to pull, that's always good. So
Yep.
this is a little bit of an older article that I have open on the screen right now, but we also got the other two dungeons announced later on in the interviews. One of them is
Yep.
going to be Theater of Pain from Shadowlands, and the other one is going to be Operation Mechagon Workshop from BFA.
Yep.
So let's talk about Operation Mechagon first, because this is the very first dungeon that comes back for a second time. Right, so it was part of
Yeah.
this season where we had all the mega dungeons. It was one of the Mythic
Yep.
Plus dungeons then, and now we get it again. So, what are your thoughts on that?
I mean, I mean, we already had a couple that we've done twice, right? I think this current season, um, with I don't know why I got the cold fog, but I'm pretty sure we had that as a Mythic Plus, at least one of the two that we have from the Legacy, from well, Bastion, right? So yeah,
Necrotic Wake.
the Necrotic Wake was a Mythic Plus dungeon. I don't know. We have so many other dungeons. I think back to BC, and when you go through kind of the time walking events, some of those dungeons I think would be fun to experience in Mythic Plus. Oh, excuse me. I know there may have to be some not redesign, but some tweaking that would have to happen for Mythic Plus in some of those older dungeons. But I think it would be fun and a challenge. Maybe too much time investment for the development team, and maybe that's why they haven't been able to do that. This makes me think back to season 4 of Dragonflight, where there was not a lot of thought that went into the design of the seasonal um 4-piece or the look of the 4-piece, right? It was like, hey, okay, guys, vote on existing things, let us know what you want because we're working on other stuff. Without saying that, essentially, we don't want to invest a bunch of time in new gear and new thoughts around 4-piece, two-piece, 4-piece. So just pick which one you want and we'll give it to you. Again, recycling content, you hope they do that in the means of spending time elsewhere because they don't have to invest the time to do it. So I'm hoping that, while I don't mind it, I like both of those dungeons. I Theater of Pain was kind of traumatic for me because I think I was doing Resto Shaman back then, and I had a hard time in that dungeon. I had some trauma there. I had some depleted keys, and I remember the hook boss was challenging for me. Where the chains come across.
Yeah.
You remember that one? I don't know. I have some trauma in that one, so I'm looking forward to tackling that trauma and dealing with it in Mythic Plus. And Motherload, I think I'm excited for. So, oh no, not Motherload. What was the other?
Workshop, Mechagon Workshop.
Oh yeah, that was a
Yeah.
fun one. I'm looking forward to that one as well.
Yeah.
I,
Well,
I
I
enjoyed
think
that
the
one.
point for Workshop is that it's actually not coming back for a second time, it's coming back for a third time, right? Because
Third, that's true.
you
Yeah,
are
yeah.
correct into saying that they were all Mythic Plus dungeons in the past, so there's probably very little that they need to do to bring them back, but there were so many that they could have picked from that haven't been brought back yet. So I'm actually not that excited for playing this for a third time. I can see why they're bringing it back because it has like the goblins and that's kind of like the main
Right.
theme. But
Mhm.
I mean, they could have done something else. Like especially for Mythic Plus, if you're into the lore, you're going to play those dungeons once and then you're done, right? If you're not doing Mythic Plus, so
Yep.
maybe it's even not that important for those people. But if you're doing Mythic Plus, I don't care about goblins, man. I just want good
Yeah.
dungeons.
Yeah.
So
Want your percent?
yeah,
Yeah.
so I'm not sure bringing something back for a third time, even meaning that it's that soon and there's so many things that they could have done is a good idea. And then when you mentioned Theater of Pain and the trauma and everything, I don't think you're the only one. It's a very hard dungeon. The Lich boss was also very hard. The last boss with the charges, all of
Yep.
these things were very
Yeah.
hard to achieve for like regular players, not bug friendly. And the other thing I guess we have to mention is that Theater of Pain is a 5 boss dungeon, right? So
Right.
it was, I think, a little bit longer compared to everything else. And on Tyrannica weeks, it was something that I would personally avoid most of the time because it was that much harder to do it. And from that perspective, I'm not that excited because I think that with the current design, with the current dungeons, with everything that they're doing with Mythic Plus, everything is hard enough already. So I would love to see a little bit easier dungeons so that we can enjoy our Mythic Plus time a little bit more. And having hard dungeons just kind of like, in my mind, there are a few dungeons that I don't want to play, from let's say the 8th that you have. There's always 2 or 3 that you're avoiding. I think Theater of Pain is going to be one of these. So having dungeons that you want to avoid is just not good for the game in general, I think. Maybe they tune it down a little bit. Maybe they make some changes. Maybe the affixes will help because there were some skips that you can do in there. The PvP boss was also there if you remember, and that was
Oh, yeah.
kind of
Yep.
because like good players could take advantage of it. Bad players they would just fight there because if you're in a pug, they just I want the buff and they start fighting and they fight
Yeah.
for 5 minutes and in the meantime you're dying upstairs, and like you guys done.
Yeah. Hurry
And
it up, please. That's so
yeah,
funny.
so I'm kind of scared about the design of this. Hopefully it doesn't turn out that bad, but just in general, looking into the other dungeons, by the way, which are part of the regular schedule, so to speak. I don't think it's going to be an easy M plus season at all because, for example, Dark Flame Cleft is one of the original dungeons, and I don't see the darkness at the end and this thing playing out that well in Mythic Plus, especially in pugs. Organized
Hate
teams are
the
going to be fine there, but we're going to have a lot of troubles with those candles and especially the last boss. So
Yep.
that's gonna be hard. The priority is also not going to be easy, considering that the dungeon is definitely not linear at the start, and you can butt poo everything with the mini bosses. So it's gonna be a lot of funny moments there as well. So I was just hoping for something easier, maybe 3 boss dungeons, because I really enjoy 3 boss dungeons.
Yeah.
But it is what it is, right? So at least we're getting 5 new dungeons, and then some exciting old ones.
Yeah. Pyre is it's my favorite dungeon, but man, when I think of the consecration and when you're working your way up to that second boss and the amount of damage that does to players. And then when you go after you beat that boss, you go up the steps and there's that mini boss with the aura, that pulsing aura. Oh man, that's gonna be brutal.
Yeah.
That I'm not looking for it. And then Dark Flame Chorus, that's I'm not looking forward to that one either. So
Yeah, yeah. As I said, I think it's going to be a hard dungeon. And remember, like what I remember from playing those at the beginning of the season when it was basically Mythic Zero and stuff like that. I remember them being hard at Mythic Zero, right? So if they're hard at Mythic Zero, when they scale up and they're actually part of Mythic Plus, I don't think they're gonna become any easier. And then you're getting some hard dungeons because even Workshop was not that easy with the last boss and all the design around it. Even the second before last boss with the beams going around when you had to dodge the cogwheels, also pug unfriendly. So I hope I'm wrong on this one, but I think we have a very hard Mythic Plus season right now, and the next one is at the very least not going to be easier.
yeah.
Yeah, so fasten your
Yep.
seatbelts.
Yep. Get ready.
Yeah. We had an Ian interview where he also talked about Mythic Plus, and he addressed some things that they were trying to basically fix in the game. Apparently, they are aware right now that there is a huge gap from going from plus 11 to plus 12, which is basically where I'm kind of sort of this season right now, and I can definitely feel it. Like 11s feel like a homework key. As long as you have a decent group, you can have a lot of mistakes, still time them, and then you go into the 12 and it's like a different game. Like you're getting like close to one shot at now, and you cannot wipe because the timers are tight, etc. So I guess they're trying to smooth out this curve a little bit, which is quite welcoming. But I don't see right now how they're going to do that, unless they remove a bunch of affixes and things like that. One thing that I'll say though is I kind of enjoy first the fact that at plus 10, you are getting both fortified and tyrannical at the same time. Yes, it's a big jump. Maybe that needs a little bit of a smoothing as well. But the fact that you don't have tyrannical and fortified weeks anymore at that point is actually a huge win for me. I don't know how you
Yeah.
feel about that.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, because thinking back to the previous seasons where you'd have push weeks and then you'd have weeks where you basically just take off because you're like, there's no way we're not going to push this specific dungeon because
Yeah.
it's way too hard. There's no point.
And you know
right?
what?
And so
What was the
now,
worst part for me? You have the push week, which was like supposedly the easiest of all weeks, and something happens real life, and I just cannot play this week, right?
oh
I
man,
just
that's
cannot push
rough.
the keys, and you miss the push
Yeah,
week,
that's
and then
bad.
there's like three
Yeah,
hard weeks, and you're like, oh
yeah,
my god, man! Now I have to wait
yeah.
another
I missed
month.
my opportunity. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yes.
it's yeah, I like the change. I do agree. And now my keys, I'm stopping at 10. I haven't even attempted any 11s or 12s. My guild does 11s, 12s, even 13s. I've one or two players that are at like 3,000 IO. Um, so they're I think pushing 13s. Um, and then yeah. So but I haven't experienced them personally, but I've heard the complaints and gripes. Yeah, I think I think that's part of the reason why I haven't pushed because it just feels like this big wall of, and I pug, even though I have 30 odd raiders in my guild that I can easily jump in with and just get, I don't want to say get carried because I can game, but I enjoy the systematic process of pugging and doing sixes, sevens, eights. I like the challenge of that. Call me a glutton for punishment because like I said, I have a group of people at the ready that are ready to, they beg me to run with them, and it's like I don't want to. I'll do maybe one or two lower keys on their alts, but I won't run with them on the big groups because I'm just not in that mindset. But I do hear them talk about the big wall of like, from especially from 11 to 12 and the change in the affixes at 12, and just the one shot, and if the kicks don't go right, the stops don't go right, it like you said, people are getting one shot and it just feels like once there's a wipe or two, it's like start over. And so I think there's some, I don't know how long you want to get into the key plus stuff, but
Yeah.
there's some thoughts around how do they smooth that out, right? So yeah, I have some thoughts around that.
Yeah, let me mention that we actually had a plan for the first episode to be all around Mythic
Yeah,
Plus, so maybe
for
we
sure.
can push
Yeah,
those topics for episode 2
yeah.
right now.
Okay. Yeah.
I'm just going to mention a couple more things. It's really nice that at 12 you lose the extra affix that you get, and it was nice in the sense that, for example, the Dispel affix is obnoxious for healers. Like, I guess nobody else cares. It's a healer affix, which it's not really, but having to play at 12 is actually welcome in that perspective because you don't have to think, oh, I have to change talents this week and I have to get the spell or CC or poison cleansing totem because I'm playing shaman, right? All of these things are gone, so that's very welcoming. And then I guess the other perspective which you're going to relate more to is that at 6, 7s, 8s, it feels like when you're playing oaths specifically, you're always getting the wrong crests, right? The gearing process is very, very hard at this point because you either need the higher crests and you're running way too low dungeons, or you're at the higher crests and now you need lower crests to update your gear up to that point. I think they're trying to address that as well from what Ian said in the interview, although they're not giving any specific details of how exactly they're going to do that. But hopefully that's something that's going to play out well, especially for pug groups. And I guess we can talk about that more in the next episode.
I will say I have a hack on that for me personally, but you have to know PvP. But in PvP, when you get conquest, you get, well, first after you get a couple wins, you'll get a quest with these ribbons, and you can use those ribbons to create gear. And the gear is, I think, champion level gear, and so you're not spending any valor stones or crests. And as you know, once you get that item level, it automatically makes everything else cheaper, right?
Yeah.
And so what I typically do is I'll just PvP it out, get a bunch of valor, buy the ribbons, get the stats that I want, because with those you could just buy the gear outright.
Mhm.
But what you could also do is craft the gear. So if you have a bit of gold, you can actually craft with the stats that you want, and you're automatically saving all those valor stones and all those crests. So if you do both, there's a little bit of an advantage.
Okay, so that's a very good tip. I didn't know that. You might actually
Yeah.
make me PvP a little bit, but that's a very good tip for the next episode as well. But that's also something that you shouldn't be doing. Like the system should be better and
Yeah.
not force
Yeah.
you to do stuff that you don't want to because
Yep.
you need some extra
Yep.
quests and I have to do lower or higher dungeons than my level right now. But uh,
That's frustrating for sure.
yeah, so they talk about quests as well. Uh, that's a different topic. They're not going to change the way that quests work. I think there should be only one type of quests, personally. So it's very confusing having 4 types of gear tracks, like champion, whatever champion means, right? I don't even know which
Yeah.
one is the highest one right now.
Yeah.
And then you have 4 types of quests, and I think that they should just put everything into be like you have one type of gear, one type of crests, and then maybe when a piece of gear drops or you craft it, doesn't matter how you obtain it, you can only upgrade it that many times, right? So what is going to matter there is what level you get it at, and then you can only upgrade that many times. And if they wanna throttle everything and make it slower and you have more limits, you still have the crest caps. You still can like limit the gear. Maybe you can upgrade only once per week because the crest like hidden up and it's going to fall apart if you upgrade it too many times. There's so many things they can do to simplify the system, and at the same time, it's going to make it much more friendlier because you'll be farming the same crests and you're not gonna be wasting them on your main and not having them on your ults. But it seems that they're gonna be sticking to whatever they have right now and just trying to adjust it to work a little bit better, which I don't see it being much better than what it is right now. But yeah, maybe we just have to go along with this for now.
Yeah, I think they're gonna keep it for a while, and I'll tell you why. When I think back to the original WoW and leveling and how long it took to level, there was a grind, and there was a certain level of complexity with, well, maybe not complexity, but there was a grind to it. You had to earn it. And I noticed a transition in the game where back in the days, professional was kind of straightforward, right? Where it was like you
Yeah.
level it and you get it. Maybe if you get a recipe, great. You'll craft for the whole server. But when you look at the complexity that they've brought into the game when it comes to professions, and the different elements, and this is another topic, but I'm going somewhere with it. Um, Same thing with the gear. There's a diversity. I think that they want to um, have this complexity because there's a certain amount of understanding and learning that maybe makes those dopamine hits go off where it's like, oh, now I understand. So in order for me to get to there, I need to do this, and I'll earn those. And I don't know. I just feel like there's like this carrot to chase, and if you want to get, and I saw it because I have a friend that just came back to the guild or to the game after a long break, and to see him kind of not want to be spoon fed how to get the gear, but to kind of hear from his perspective on doing the mythic pluses and earning the crest. And I even had a longtime veteran player who still didn't know that he could take those lower crests and upgrade them to higher crests. He had no clue that was the thing. He's like, I'm sitting on like 800 of these. What do I even do with them? It's a waste. And I'm like, uh, there's a mechanic for that. So, and he got all excited. So I think the complexity is something that the game needs. I think when you kind of simple it down, I mean, let's be honest, some of us players like to complain about stuff. I mean, the whole community complains all the time, no matter what you do. It's just part of the pain of the game. And there's a little bit of pride in the complaining. I often hear oftentimes where it's like, oh, I had the level and it took me weeks, and but they're complaining, but it's a proud complaint, right? Because they went through it. And so I could see some of that same thing happening with Crest and even professions. I hear the people griping, and there's a certain amount of gripe where it's like, are you actually complaining, or are you actually like, there's some pride in that because you accomplished it.
Just
So
talking and
it's
opening
interesting.
your mouth for the sake of it. Yeah. I can see that. I can see that. But at the same time, I feel that if everything is way too complicated, it's kind of putting a barrier there for people to start doing whatever
Sure.
it is. It doesn't matter if it's professions or if it's upgrading your gear in Mythic Plus and things like that.
Yeah,
So like
I agree.
this is also a topic for different episode, but the game is not very welcoming to new players or even
No.
returning players. So from that perspective, you can say I'm complaining, but I think that it should be much more simplistic, so that it accommodates more people. It's easier for people to get through those barriers and start doing whatever they want to do in the game instead of being afraid, oh my god, there's like 4 tracks of gear and 4 crests, and then there's like valor stones, but there's caps. Like, what am I doing here?
Yeah.
So it's so much that it's just intimidating at some point, and that's something that they need to look into simplifying. And they even said it themselves. Like they said that the names of the crests are confusing, so we're going to try
Yeah.
to simplify that.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
good that they see that,
Good.
but I think
Yeah.
they need to go one step further, make it even more simpler. I know that there are some concerns there with people trying to bend the system a little bit and farm too many crests and upgrade too much gear, but they've been there for a while now. They know how to tackle those, and as I said,
Yeah.
there's different mechanisms that you can put into the gear itself, into the caps, etc., so to make sure that people are not cheating. But yeah, I guess we'll wait and see. One of the next topics is that they're going to be changing the rewards. We're going to be talking about that as well. So we'll see how that plays out. Let's mention the raid though. The whole patch is going to be called Undermined, the 11.1 patch. And they mentioned this Goblin raid, which is basically going to be the casino of Gallywix. So it looks cool on paper, but what is your main take when you saw those announcements?
Yeah, I think I will say I like it. I like content. I like when they try things, and so I'm looking forward to this. I do feel like um there, and this will probably come up a little bit later when we start to get down kind of the conversation, but I think they're leading into something, and I think this is kind of a mini story to announce or lead into something else. But it's content. I like, I played Goblin for a long time. I like Goblin, so I'm looking forward to it.
Okay. Well, to me, it's a little bit weird because I follow the lore, but maybe not that closely because I don't know who Gallywix is. I guess I've seen him, but I didn't much pay attention to that character.
Mhm, mhm.
So I know that they're going to connect it with the story somehow because we saw the black blood from the old gods, etc., in some of the screenshots.
Yeah.
So it's going
Yep.
to be connected to Zalatad, but so far to me it felt like even in this patch we are in the Nerubar Palace. We're fighting some bugs and Nerubians, which was cool. We had a cool boss, but that also felt like a side story because you said this feels like a side story, right? That also felt
Yep.
like a side story, and I keep thinking they had this really nice teaser in the beginning of the expansion with the
Yep.
Silitas, with Anduin, with the sword, and
Yep.
you're getting excited. Oh my god, what's going to happen? We're gonna like unplug the sword and we're gonna fight big bosses and big characters,
Yeah.
and then you get a bug queen that you had to fight.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
for me, that kind of feels like I don't watch anime that much, but in anime you have this main story, and then you get 40 episodes of like a side story, which is a filler. and you can kind of like skip it and go to the main story, but then you're missing some content, right? So
Yeah.
we already had that, and I hope that the next patch is not going to be another filler, because that's going to be an expansion of fillers so far. And I'm kind of like lusting for a little bit more of the main story, main characters, like big protagonists and big villains to fight. And it
Are you
kind of
are you
feels like
talking
we're
about
missing.
midnight, or what when you
No,
say
I'm,
the
I'm
next
talking
patch?
about right now, the next patch, because I,
Yeah.
I I don't want to be fighting Nero Barbala's Queen Anzarak until next patch midnight, and then who knows, maybe until Last Titan, because we don't know what's gonna happen in midnight. So I'm hoping that there's gonna be more of the main story, more of the main characters, and it's going to get a little bit more exciting than what it is right now. Is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, I don't expect much, I'll be honest. I think it's just, I don't think they're gonna touch on the sword at all, which is unfortunate. I don't anticipate there to be much meaningful lore impact. I will say I'm not a huge lore person, but based on what I've seen so far, I think it's just gonna be a small um not even an insinuation, but just a little bit of of like a gap closer on maybe why some of these characters have been around, and filling in some of those questions. But I don't think we're gonna get anything significant or meaningful out of this
Yeah,
next patch,
just
unfortunately.
another teaser, and they did
Yep.
mention that the sword is going to be like two expansions from now. Maybe Illidan is
Oh,
going to come back.
jeez.
So there's a lot of exciting things, but they're not here right now. Like we're still
No.
waiting. So that's a little
Yep.
bit annoying to me. But we'll see. Like the new raid definitely looks nice. The goblins present some interesting designs that they can do with
Yeah.
bosses and things like that. So that's something to look forward to. But I'm just hoping there's gonna be more when it comes to like the story and how the whole thing is going to develop potentially. All right, so a few other things, I guess, like side announcements. We are going to get some improvements to the delves, and Bran is going to stay, which was not the initial plan, as far as I'm aware. But I guess they decided to keep him for the whole expansion, and now he's going to have a tank role and maybe some new skills and things that you can use into the delves. But I'm just reading all of this, and I'm thinking, all right, delves. They're kind of boring. Like, I'm sorry, but this is not an evergreen feature to me. It's just like a solo dungeon that you get into. We were forced to do it because the gear was good into the beginning of the season. But
Yeah.
once you
Exactly.
outgrown this, there's like,
Yeah.
I don't have reason to go back in there. It doesn't feel like a progression to push the higher delves. It's not interesting in the sense of you don't get any, like, there's extra skills in there, but it's like, okay, you get 5%
Yeah.
haste for 1 minute. Yeah,
Yep.
thanks, buddy. That's
Yeah.
it's not like Torghast level of
Yep.
customization to the skills.
Yeah.
So I don't know what's your take on that, but to me, just like, yeah, I think I'll have to do some delves when the next patch hits until I can actually outgrow them and forget about them for good.
Yeah, I don't like delve system completely. I think like it's kind of, well, okay, I'll say the fact that he could be a tank is a big deal because my warlock, my hunter, no
Yeah.
problem. I can go in level 8, make Bran a healer, and just blast it out, and no problem, right? Then I get on my disc priest, and I'm like, okay, well, I don't need Bran as a healer. As a DPS, he's just too
Is
squishy.
he actually
Uh,
DPSing or is he AFK?
yeah, exactly. He's running off doing something else. Like it was weird, and so I always had to group up as my as a healer, which was unfortunate because sometimes I have an impatience. I just want to get through it. Um, and do it on my own. Going back to like having a full guild at my disposal and I can just make people do it. I don't like putting that onto people. So I like doing it on my own. But as a healer, I couldn't. And so I'm always hitting up people like, hey, let's go do this delve. You can tank or even DPS. I could probably heal you through some of it. So I don't know. I think, like you mentioned, it's great for early gearing on alts. And at the beginning of the expansion, I think it was nice. It was fun. It was new, but it got old pretty quick. And now I don't do it unless I'm on an alt. Even on alt, it's almost like I could just jump right into Mythic Plus
Yeah,
and
it's a chore basically.
yeah,
Uh,
exactly.
I guess the
Yep.
one good thing was that they were a little bit faster, and you can get solo playing them. You could get hero track
Yeah,
gear in
that's
your
true.
vault. Uh, But yeah, I mean, it's not, I
And
guess,
praying
what
for a map.
what we were expecting. And they even have an interview where they say that they're aware that the delves are not for everyone, and they're okay with that. And they just wanted to give players a way to progress a solo journey. But to
Yeah.
me, that solo journey is kind of boring. And I guess there are people who are, let's say, not into Mythic Plus. And if you're one, just let us know in the comments below. Like, we want to know what's the ratio here. But I guess there are people who are just doing delves and they're having fun and, enjoying them. But to me, it seems like they missed the point in so many ways, because they said, okay, the delves are going to be like the top of the cream because we've learned from everything we've done so far, islands, Torghast, etc. And I don't see anything that they've learned. It's just a boring dungeon to me. But maybe I'm wrong. Maybe that's just my personal opinion. I don't know. I don't know about you.
Yeah, I think, I agree. I think, I never went past an 8, not once. I never did a 9, never did 10, never did 11, never saw the reason to. I mean, I do transmog very, very minimally. I'm not a mount collector. I like end game content primarily. And so for me, there was no point going past an 8. Now, when Torghast was out in Shadowlands, I enjoyed that. I thought it was cool to be able to customize some of the abilities and build on those abilities and push higher levels. I actually enjoyed that. And I thought that's what we were going to get with Delves, and it just didn't turn out. So I don't think they totally learned. I don't know. Maybe there was more vocality from the players that didn't like Torghast, and so they tried to find something a little bit more toned down. But I personally enjoy pushing content at times, and Torghast was fun. I was hoping to get the same thing in the Delves.
Oh, it's funny you say that, because you say I don't think players like Torghast, but I haven't actually heard many people say I didn't like Torghast. It's actually exactly the opposite. I hear a lot of people saying, Torghast was good. It had so much potential. It could have been made so much better. So I don't find people who hate it. And once we mentioned this, I can find it in my notes here and to show it on the screen. But they're also in 11.1.5. They're bringing back horrific visions.
Yep.
So before we get into that, I guess if they're bringing back horrific visions, which is like a similar game mode in the past, I guess we could be revisiting Torghast in the future as well. And I think the receivement for that in the community is going to be quite well. I don't think anyone's gonna say, "Yo, I don't want to go back to Torghast," you know. So I guess that's something to be excited for.
Yeah, I mean, I could see how the horrific visions ties into the lore. And so I kind of understand why they're going that route a bit, I guess. Torghast was very specific to Shadowlands. And I don't know that we would be revisiting it, while I would welcome it. So, or a content that was like that.
Yeah.
Um, I didn't do the masks in the horrific visions. I ran horrific visions, but I never pushed it. I know a lot of players enjoy the mask system. But then it became like, again, a chore to get the sockets, right? So I wonder how they're gonna play that for this expansion with the revisited horrific visions. Not a reboot, right? So it's like we're literally going back to where we were.
No, I'm
I
I'm
mean,
not sure, because I didn't understand. Is it going to be exactly the same horrific visions, or they're going to like shake it up a little bit? Um, but yeah, so for those of you who haven't done it, I guess, because this is basically exactly when I came back to the game, but I remember doing them. So you get into this dungeon, kind of like a delve, but instead of a timer, you have the sanity, which you can drop low. And if it drops low, you just get out of the dungeon to the point where you reached with all the rewards and everything you've killed so far. And it's designed in such a way that you can not get till the end at the very first visit. Like, you have to progress this, and that felt really nice. Like, the delve
yeah,
progression was like, okay, I changed from the drop down. Now it's not a +3, it's +5 or
yeah,
+8, and it's exactly the
yeah,
same thing. While in the horrific visions, there was the sense of progression, because you also had like the talents that would give you more sanity. I don't even remember if it was talents or like some kind of nodes that you're upgrading, but they give you more
yeah,
sanity, they give you more
yeah.
resistance, more damage, something like that. So it had the sense of progression, and it was not like, oh, I can do this today. Every week you would get a little bit further. You
Yeah.
would kill the next
Get the
boss.
cloak.
Yeah,
Hmm.
you would upgrade your gear, right? So that
Yeah.
was really nice. And then at some point you get to the end and there were those masks which were basically like affixes, like Mythic Plus affixes. They would just make it harder for you to do it, but then there were like achievements, and I don't remember if there was like better gear or maybe you would get more currency or something at the end. But all of that felt much more engaging, much more interesting than delves, like levels higher than what delves are. Right, so
Yeah.
I'm actually kind of excited they're bringing this back because it was a very interesting gameplay mode for me. I actually did all the masks and all the stuff. It's also kind of like Torghast. You can go solo, but you can go with friends. So I remember like when I was progressing the last boss in one of them for the first time, I actually went with a friend and we killed it. And it was like, oh, so cool. You know, it
Yeah.
felt like we killed it
Yeah.
like a mythic raid boss or something.
Yep.
So that was actually exciting. That's something that I remember with like good feelings, right? I don't think I
Yeah.
remember the delves with good feelings, but that was
No.
something definitely that's something that is going to be exciting for me. And I'm actually more happy that it's not going to come instantly on the next patch. It's going to be 1.5 patch. But I'm more excited for that than I'm excited for delves. I can't even say
Yeah.
that I'm excited for delves.
No. I'm definitely not excited for Delves. Here's a question I have for you though. When you think about Horrific Visions Revisited, there was grind, and it was player power based because it directly contributed to your cloak, and which was required for the raid. And you could say, potentially like a Mythic Plus element to it, right? Even though there wasn't really like sanity, but your cloak got more powerful. And then there was a socket element to it. So now in the game with war bands and alt friendliness, the question is it going to be something that is isolated to just Horrific Visions, and so the powers that you get as you go through that are limited to that instance, or are they going to bring those elements out of the Horrific Vision into the real world and contribute to player power? We kind of know player power in the past is not something that the community completely loves, especially when it's something that goes away. So what are your thoughts there?
I think they'll be a little bit scared to have player power at all connected to that. But we don't know yet. Like, I don't think they've said much in the interviews. If they do something like that, I think it's going to be very minimalistic. Like, they're not going to go hard into you have this cloak, which your whole gameplay basically resolves around it and things like that.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
but you bring a good point because at the same time, if there's no player power, and let's say it's just like some reputation and like a mount, the transmog that you get at the end, then I don't know if there's gonna be incentive to do it. Because you said I didn't do Delves past 8, right? I actually did like the whole Delves journey just to get like the rewards, and I did the 11s, but I just did them for the achievement and I forgot about them, right? While getting a currency from the Horrific Visions and getting some currency from Torghast, I actually kept doing those after I did like the highest level, whatever that was back in the day, right?
Yeah.
So it's gonna be interesting to see if, because if it's connected with player power, you're gonna be doing them no matter what, right? If they're not, which maybe is what they're leaning to, then how are they going to keep it interesting, better than Delves, and how are they gonna bring you back to do them more than once? Basically,
Yeah.
is gonna be
And
an interesting approach to see what they do there.
yeah, and for me, because I'm so alt friendly right now, in a sense of I'm playing alts and I'm alt driven, like how is that going to impact alts? Because yeah, I have characters that are. I mean, I got people in my guild that are super high, right? And I'm not. I think my highest character is like probably 625 or something like that. Nothing crazy. Um, but if there's a system in place where it's limited to the specific character, I don't know how interested in it I'm going to be personally in this state of my kind of gaming experience, right? I want to make sure that it's things that are across my characters, and I hope they're considering that when they're developing it.
Yeah. Oh, I guess we'll wait and see. That's gonna be a few months away, but definitely something that I'm looking forward to.
Yeah,
Especially if that
for
means
sure.
that we're also going to revisit Torghast. Maybe like my hope, that's gonna be the last thing I'm going to say here, but my hope is that Once we get the horrific visions, hopefully they turn out to be a blast. Maybe we get a Torghast after that. That turns out to be a blast. And at some point they say, maybe the Delves are not the green evergreen feature we wanted, but we can replace it with one of them, and then I'll be happy. You know, that's my hope. All right, next topic. They actually announced, and that's in the roadmap that we're going to show in a second, but there was a section that said new seasonal rewards, which we don't know exactly what it means, but to me, that means that, hey, maybe they can remove the Great Vault. Because same thing as people didn't say they hate Torghast, I don't know many people who don't say they don't hate the Great Vault. I don't know any Great Vault enjoyers, right?
Yeah.
So maybe they're going to do that. And what are your thoughts on this topic?
Yeah, I think to me, when I hear seasonal rewards, I think of, um, you know, it's like a longer term vault where you do have to achieve certain points, and at certain points you unlock something, right? So and oftentimes in games you'll have kind of the subscriber tier, and then there's like another premium tier underneath, right? If
Yeah.
you paid for that extra one, you get additional bonuses. um I don't hate it. I like, there's certain times where I just like the grind. The only time I don't like it is when I come back, if I take a break and I feel behind and I have to like do all these things to kind of catch up. That can be a bit uncomfortable. But that's kind of punishment for taking a break, right?
Yeah.
So
Well,
I don't know. I look forward to changes in the game. I like the fact in general that Blizzard's introducing new things, because that's the only way you can try it and get feedback from the community to see if it's going to stick or
yeah.
not, right? Like I know we've had a conversation in the past where you've mentioned like them labeling things as evergreen, but it's like it's not really on you to label it. Let us give you the feedback on what we think and what we like and how we feel, and listen to the feedback and build upon that and modify upon that, instead of just especially if I don't know how many of those developers are playing the game, but we are playing it, right? And we could give the most valuable feedback. And again, there's going to be some divide and differences in that feedback, but you can look at the general kind of feel of the community and take it from there.
Yeah. Oh, I also, like I said, Great Vault because this is my biggest pain point. But with seasonal rewards, I guess they also mean like the amount that you get for like 2K IO rating, and then there's like a tint of your transmog in 25, which is not much. So maybe they're going to add more tiers. There's maybe going to be more rewards, so there's more incentive to keep pushing after you reach 2K or 25 or whatever that number is. So I
Yeah.
think that's going to be quite welcoming. They're also addressing the fact that what I mentioned earlier, you might be doing something, but you're getting the wrong crests. They uh, kind of relate to this by saying that if you're just starting Mythic Plus, there's no point doing the lower keys because they don't give you the rewards that you want. So you basically want to start at +7 right away, but you don't have the gear, so that's kind of problematic. So they're looking into that curve. They're addressing that there is a problem there. It's not clear to me how they're going to solve it. Because just pushing, let's say the new +7 is now going to be +5 or something like that. Just changing the numbers is not going to solve the problem. It's just going to move it into a different location.
Yep.
But hopefully they can come up with some ideas. And again, to me, that's just having one set of crests and one set of gear that you can upgrade that many times. But maybe they have better ideas. Maybe they come up with something genius here and they make it much better.
Yeah, I mean, I like I said, I think there was a bunch of, well, the the fact that they reached out and said take this survey, and took me like 30 minutes to do it. They want our feedback, and so hopefully they did a survey for something like this to kind of get the feel for the player community that plays this a lot. Uh, excuse me, to try to balance or understand what's going to make sense, because it is especially like you said earlier for new players. Us old vets, we get it. We know how to maneuver, and maybe we don't memorize the names, but we know how to work the system, and we know when it's uncomfortable for us to have to go back to lower dungeons to get the crest to upgrade certain gear or whatever. That can be frustrating. So that feedback, but also from the feedback from new players and what's going to make it more welcoming, because we need new players in the game. Like, we can't just keep up with the old folks like me.
Yeah, that's definitely an important topic. And I guess they're going to be changing things. Like, we don't know how, we don't know if it's going to be good or bad, but at least they're looking into some changes in how Mythic Plus works and how the rewards are going to be connected to it, etc. I guess we can just jump into the next topic, which is this customizable car mount that people are getting excited about. And just reading everything, it seems like they're trying to do. Have you ever played Need for Speed? Like a racing game? They're trying to do a racing
Yeah.
game inside of World of Warcraft, which I guess is going to be like an interesting side game, kind of like Plunderstorm, I guess, but it's going to be in game. And my take on this is, if they do it well, then it's going to be exciting. It's going to be something that people are going to do. It's gonna be like basically dragon riding, but on the ground.
Yep.
And then you have all these things that you can do with your car, like customize it, change the gear, change how it actually travels. Do you want to get more speed, more control, things like that? And one thing they said though is that we're not planning to have a raid boss or a dungeon mechanic that involves the car as of right now, which was kind of interesting to me. But yeah, what's your take on this?
I don't believe it.
How you don't believe
Maybe
it?
not in the first. No, maybe not in the first edition or like the introduction of it. Um, because when Dragon Riding came out, there was elements in dungeons right when it dropped, and it was cool. It was fun to be able to fly around a dungeon on your dragon, and to go to the different points. I thought that was cool. It was very confusing the very first time I did it,
Yeah.
but it was fun. And then after a while, kind of that feeling of funness is like, oh God, I gotta fly over here and I gotta like manage my vigor and get over there, right? Um, it's cool. I don't believe that they're not gonna have a dungeon that has it though. I find that hard to believe. I don't think, because I anticipate, like you said, if they launch it properly and it's fun and engaging, the people will play it and they will see, okay, this was great. Maybe we can make a dungeon later that has this element in it at some form or faction.
Yeah, I think
Whether
they,
it's
they
raid or
even mentioned it in this way. Like, we're not doing this initially. That was like initially, which means that maybe in the future. It's just
yeah,
not going to be that
exactly.
season.
Yep.
Yeah. Oh, they
Yep.
also mentioned, kind of like a side topic, but they also mentioned that they're looking to bring back raids, kind of like Onyxia or Gru's Lair, which had like 1, 2 bosses only. Not right
Yeah.
now, but in the future. So maybe that's something they can integrate there as well. And that's also something exciting, like, because you're going to get new raid boss in the middle of a
Yeah.
season or something. So I
Love
don't
it.
think there's
Yeah.
anyone who's gonna say I don't want this, right? I think
Nope.
that's gonna be
Nope.
very exciting.
Yep. That's fun. Yeah. Not
All
a
right.
lot of trash, not a lot of time. You can just jump in and have a challenging boss. It's
Yeah.
always fun.
Learn
That
the
was always
boss,
fun.
move on.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yep. Exactly. Yeah.
All right. So let me see if I have the updated roadmap. So this is what it looks like right now. Um, I think we covered a lot of those things, but maybe the main topic and the most exciting part for me, and I say exciting, but there's gonna be no season 4, maybe. We cannot really tell from this picture, but as bad as season 4 was, and again, it was not even season for me, but as bad as season 4 was last time, I guess that's actually kind of be welcoming, and that also probably means that we're gonna be getting the expansion early in 2026 instead of at the end.
Yep. Yeah. That's what it looks like. I concur with your thoughts there. I don't think there's going to be a season 4. I think hopefully again they learned from their mistakes. Again, it felt like it was just thrown together. I didn't even play Mythic Plus at all, just because I was so put off by the fact that they used the same dungeons, they used the same tier sets, they used the same transmog, and it
Yeah.
was just like, what are you even doing? So I was very put off by that, and I didn't play Mythic Plus. I just did PvP
Yeah,
mostly.
there were no
Um,
even raid affixes, which was the very first edition, the Fated. At least it had some raid affixes, which kind of make it a little bit
yeah,
more spicy or
a
interesting.
little
They didn't
different.
even have
Yeah,
that. Yeah.
yeah,
All right, but
yeah. So
I
yeah,
guess the faster cadence is interesting. So we're gonna be getting 3 seasons, a new expansion. Aren't you scared a little bit though about the fact that we had a very buggy patch just now with the 0.5, right? There were so many
Yep.
problems. I don't even want to get started on that. Um, so this faster cadence is obviously something that they're a little bit struggling to keep up with, and obviously they're trying to stick to it. What if they release an expansion and it's as buggy as the last patch? Aren't you afraid
I
a
hope
little bit of
not.
that?
I hope not. I am afraid of it. I will say that with the workflows that go into that, I mean, we are both technical. We both have technical roles. And the thing is when you modify a pace, there's a learning curve and there's going to be, shortcomings. I anticipate the team to understand and kind of get through that. Hopefully, I mean, I don't know any of these. Well, that's a lie. I don't regularly talk to any of these developers, and so I can't say for a fact like okay, like they're gonna get better. But I feel like look, they announced way early on like we wanted to get more content out. We announced 3 expansions. We're gonna be cranking it out. There's gonna be some learning curve and some pain points with a change of tempo, but my hope, and I have a tendency to be a little bit more on the bright side type, that they're gonna
Don't we
get it,
all?
and yeah, that and it'll get better as we go on, and they get used to this new pace and this new cadence and this new delivery. So that's my hope, because if it's gonna be buggy with desync and just issues, that's not going to be pleasant. It's never fun playing a game when there's big
Yeah, I
issues.
like your take though. I haven't thought about it from this perspective, but I guess they're still learning and getting used to this faster cadence. So hopefully, when the next, maybe next patch is too early, but when the next expansion comes, they're in a much better place and they're getting used to everything and it flows much smoother. So that's actually a very nice point. I haven't thought about it from this perspective.
My
All right.
technical, yeah, my technical background, I've experienced this a few
Yeah,
times.
yeah,
So yeah.
yeah, definitely. All right, so I guess the other thing is we're gonna get player housing obviously before the next expansion launches. Maybe the same thing as the early access. If you pay the premium package for the next expansion, you can go build your house, and then maybe we get a Legion remix. Um, Excited about that?
Me, no, I'm not a big. I'm a retail Andy.
Yeah.
Excuse me. I didn't do mop remix. I barely played classic. When they brought it out. Well, I guess it would be, yeah, classic. The original one I played a little bit when they did Burning Crusade. I played very minimal, less than classic, and I haven't touched it since. I'm not a big, even the hardcore stuff. I'm a classic and or I'm a retail Andy. I like the current game in its current state. I like Mythic Plus. I like the raids. I have a hard time going because I've played all of these things already. Even with the remix and some fun elements that they introduced in that, it doesn't hold my attention long enough for me to play it. So
Yeah.
I think it's cool, and I have a bunch of friends that are gonna probably get off of retail and go play that, and I'm okay with that because they enjoy it, and they'll pull me in occasionally, and I'll go and they'll carry me and do stuff. But for me personally, not super looking forward to it, but I think it's cool that they're continuing this trend of let's revisit some of these older expansions and relive it for some of the people that maybe started later and now they're going back to it. This is the first time they played WoW, so they're going back to it. Those are fun. That's fun. That's why I played Classic, because I remember the leveling experience and I wanted to play it again. And so I think it's kind of cool that they keep doing it.
Yeah, I'm kind of on the same boat with you. I actually tried to play a little bit of hardcore, a little bit of classic, even a little bit of Season of Discovery. But it's like I've already been there. Or they try to spice it up a little bit with the Season of Discovery. You have this extra skills, or maybe you can do a
Yeah.
shaman tank. But the game just felt so slow to me, and
Yeah.
yeah. I will say one thing though. All right, this is exciting. There's people who play it. It's much easier to get into, by the way, for new players because it's a different game basically. But at the same time, I didn't get engaged into that. I even thought that I'm gonna go back and play. Let's say now that they're releasing Mists of Pandaria or the Cataclysm, because those are things that I haven't played back in the day. I thought that I'll be excited and I'll go back and play them, but I didn't. I just didn't want to spend the time. And I think one of the main reasons for that is that these things are not connected to your retail account. They're not connected. It's a different game, right? And
Yep.
I actually went and played Plunderstorm because it was connected to my account. It felt like part of the game, although it was a side game. And I played a lot of the Pandaria remix because the characters from there, you would actually get some achievements on your main account. You would get some mounts, and then they become part of your account. So I leveled so many things on the Pandaria remix. It had problems of its own, like it was not the content that I was expecting, but I played it because it felt connected, right? And those things, they just don't feel connected. So I think that if there was some kind of a connection, maybe you go and play Classic or Season of Discovery, and once it's over, whatever their endpoint is, you can either transfer to the next one or you can just get the character into your main account, kind of like what they
Yeah.
did with Remix. That would
Yep.
probably get me more exciting. Or especially if they had the achievements, because I haven't done those. I've done many of the achievements post factum, but I'm missing a lot of them. So if at least the achievements count to your main account or
Well,
something
then,
like that,
yeah.
I would be more excited to go and do that, because right now it feels like, okay, I'm playing the side game, but it also feels like I'm a little bit wasting my time because I could be doing stuff on my main account, on the retail account, which is going to be mounts or whatever rewards you get there. And whatever I get on the side game is going to stay there, and then I'm going to ditch it, and it's kind of like I wasted my time. So maybe that's
Yeah.
something they can think about, to make it even more engaging, because I'm kind of sort of interested to it, but in its current state, I'm just not going to play it. I'm just not going to play it.
I love that concept, and I think that if they do that, I will definitely play because there's some elite sets for PvP that are really amazing that you can't get. It's
They're
it's
not there.
unattainable.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. And so if they bring out, PvP, because these things have PvP seasons, um, you know, it would be amazing to go back and farm those out and get elite, get 2K, 2200, 2400, and be able to unlock those on my main account. So transmog, that'd be amazing.
Yeah, and I think that's a very good point, because that would be sort of a fair way to achieve those. Because let's say you're saying, "Oh, I'm missing that transmog, I can't get it." It would be kind of dumb to bring it back and you can just buy it with currency now or something, you know.
Exactly.
So
It doesn't
it
have the
wouldn't.
same impact
Yeah,
and
it
meaning.
wouldn't
Yeah.
feel good to you to buy it. It would feel bad for
Yeah.
people who actually achieved it. But if they
Yeah.
tell, okay, we're bringing it back, but now you have to go back and actually earn it the way that it's supposed to be
Yeah,
earned,
exactly.
I
That's
think
cool.
that's gonna feel fair for basically
Yeah.
everybody, right? And if
Yeah,
you
that's cool.
obviously it's not just you're gonna log in and get it. You have to go level, grind,
Yeah.
get the gear, and then
Yeah.
get the score. So
Yeah.
maybe that's definitely something that they need to look into the
I would do
future.
it for sure. Even the glad mounts and stuff, because I don't have a bunch. I have 2 glad mounts. It's like I would love to be able to, and I'm capable. Sometimes I just don't want to grind it. I would love to be able to go back and get some of those older ones. They're
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah. And even for me, it's not even about those things that were in the game and you cannot obtain anymore. I would like to experience this the way it's supposed to be experienced when everybody's playing it, but I just don't have the incentive to do it if I'm basically not getting anything out of
Yeah.
it, right?
If it's just
So
gonna be if it's just gonna sit dark
if
after.
it's only just the achievements, I would be more invested into that. But right now, it's
That's
just like,
cool.
yeah, you guys play your thing. I know it's fun, whatever for you, but it's just not my thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm right there with you on that.
Okay. All right. So I guess we've been here for a while. We can end the first episode at this point. I hope you guys enjoyed. We're gonna put some links into the description below for our YouTube channels. We're gonna make a separate channel for this podcast. We're gonna upload it there as well. And any kind of feedback that you guys have, any comments, any suggestions, they're more than welcome. And hopefully soon we'll be back with the second episode. Any last shout outs from you?
Oh, thank you. Enjoyed the conversation. Look forward to next podcast. Can't wait.
All right. Thank you
Thanks for
guys.
watching.
Bye bye and
Yep.
see you next
Bye.
time.